Hey, I'm Antoinette, and for today's reset, I've got to share my feelings about Afghanistan. Let's jump in. Welcome back to the Midday Reset, friends. And yes, just like so many of you listening, I have feelings and thoughts about Afghanistan, and I felt like saying them here was probably my best option. I didn't want to write about them, I didn't want to make a video about them, but speaking about them, sure. That felt safe, that felt comfortable, so that's the route that I'm taking because I have a lot that I'm processing in regards to the United States and its departure from Afghanistan and what that has looked like in the days since it began. But I think that in order for that to be any sort of relevant or make any sort of sense, it's important that I go back and sort of detail what this has looked like for me in terms of the war on terror, the war in Afghanistan, Iraq, and the events that led up to all of this, of course, being the attack on the World Trade Center and the hijacking of planes on September 11th, 2001. So, first and foremost, for those who don't know me, when 9/11 happened in 2001, I was about 2.5, 3 weeks into my senior year of high school. I was 17 years old, and at the time, I had a serious boyfriend. I had a really funny best friend. I was excited about my prospects for the next year because I knew I was going to go to college and I was going to start figuring out what it was that I wanted to do with my life, what career I wanted to build. I knew that I had writing talent, so I figured a book will be somewhere in my future, but I didn't know yet what it was going to look like, but I knew that I was excited. I knew that I had a lot of energy and ideas that I wanted to bring to the world, and that might sound lame, but that's how 17-year-old Antoinette thought. And senior year was really tragic. In addition to 9/11 taking place, a few weeks before that, one of my favorite artists of all time, Aaliyah, passed away in a tragic plane crash that since then the details have been disclosed that plane crash was totally avoidable. That plane was overloaded. There was no reason why they needed to overload it, but that is not what the episode's focusing on, although may she rest in peace because tomorrow is actually going to be the 20th anniversary of her passing, and I can't believe that much time has passed. But anyway, back to 17-year-old Antoinette, Aaliyah passing away, 9/11 happening, the Patriot Act. Also, Lisa Left Eye Lopez passed away in April, which she passed away on April 25th, and Aaliyah died on August 25th. I don't know if people recognize that connection, but it was to the day, however many months that is, that Lisa Left Eye Lopez died. But anywho, when 9/11 happened, I remember the nation being so wounded and so vulnerable and we were just downtrodden. That's the best way to describe it. We were downtrodden. And I remember, though, one thing that I was witnessing and that I was privy to, I don't know about other people, but in my little bubble living in Southern California, Vista to be exact, I remember this part of humanity that suddenly blossomed forth where people were just going out of their way to make contact with each other and tell each other that, hey, I'm looking out for you as your neighbor, as your coworker, as somebody who passes you while I'm out jogging. I just want you to know I'm looking out for you and I care. You know, it was very feel good warmth, even though the reason that we were being that way was because we had just witnessed this god awful attack and the aftermath that a lot of us in those first few months were incredibly confused and dazed and eventually misled about. I don't know if I've ever seen such a beautiful show of humanity since. I remember that 9/11 happened on a Tuesday, and that Friday, George W. Bush, who was president at the time, designated that a day of prayer and mourning. And at one point, he said he was proposing that for a national holiday. I don't know what happened with that because I didn't see it appear on the calendar, at least not on the day that it had initially been observed, but I also haven't been paying super close attention. So if something has been made official about that and I simply simply don't know about it. One, I'm not at all denying that that's a possibility. And two, feel free to let me know. You can write to me or hit me up on Instagram. But it was just such a time of vulnerability and sorrow and banding together against whatever that was. And while I will never ever say that 9/11 was something that I enjoyed, because I didn't, it's something that I think I still carry trauma over, even though I wasn't in a plane, I wasn't in a tower, but I still carry trauma over it because of the images that I saw and because of the drastic changes that happened after it. But I will say that I can't point to any other time in my life when I felt proud to be an American, because I felt so embraced and I saw such beautiful shows of humanity, as I've stated before. I saw people going out of their way to be so nice, going out of their way to make phone calls to people who they hadn't spoken to in a while. Maybe there was a falling out, or maybe it's just two people who are not very good at keeping up, but it was beautiful. And it makes me sad that since that moment, we haven't progressed upwards, or seemingly I don't feel that we've progressed upwards. Now, since 2001, we've had the full-on onslaught and assault of what is social media. Social media forms still existed back then, LiveJournal. I think Zanga was existing back in 2001, but it wasn't like how Facebook and Instagram and Twitter are, with this whole, like, you see a face and you see comments and you see pictures and videos all the time. A lot of people forget that what you see on social media with photos and videos and all those different types of forms of content, that is still relatively new in terms of capabilities for the internet. Being able to just go to dynamically looking at these things, that's really only become a standard when it comes to programming and site building and just what consumers are looking for. It's only really been a standard for about a decade, a little bit more. Before that, people were fine with very text-based stationary media on the internet, but social media has opened up the wide range of possibilities, and I don't think that that's entirely bad. But I think that that is part of why humanity sprang up so lovingly and easily in the wake of 9/11, and why we haven't really been able to do that in this present day that we're in right now. And it seems like we had just a steady backslide from that moment forward. Like after that holiday season in 2001, and then going into 2002, and this war is raging on, and it's just what we're committed to at this point. And politically, things started to get pretty weird under George W. Bush, I would say. I mean, I'm sure that people who are older than me or who have different political interests than I do would say something differently, but it seems like before George W. Bush and that weird election that we had in 2000, it seemed like the presidency, Bill Clinton, either way, that's neither here nor there. Bottom line is, we started moving in a direction that I don't feel was good for us as American people, because we are no longer interested in... Hey, beautiful people! Thanks so much for tuning into my episode here on YouTube. You can hear the rest of this by going to Apple Podcasts or Spotify or iHeartRadio or any place where you get your podcasts. Take care and happy listening.